LoveLore Library. Chapter 1490, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City 18. The Empress trembled as she gripped the bed covers tightly. If Yuer is dead, isn't it pointless to bring back his corpse? All she wanted to see was the living, breathing Yuer. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Just at this moment, a joyful voice came from outside the palace. Qi Feng turned around and saw a eunuch hurriedly running over and stumbling in his heels. But he could not get up in time, so he crawled in front of Qi Feng. Your Majesty, the little prince is back. He's back. What? The Empress quickly raised her head as she tumbled off the bed, even her voice was trembling. What did you just say? Is Yuer back? He's back. The Empress covered her mouth with her hand as tears flowed from between her fingers. The news was so sudden, so surprising that she could not believe it. Yes, the little prince is back. The court servants have taken him to Jingdehou. He's really back. This time, without the need for the eunuch to reply again, the Empress had rushed out and disappeared in the blink of an eye. From afar, the Empress could hear the arrogant and overbearing shouting that made her feel calm again. Get out of here. All of you, get out of my way. That bastard Feng Lianqing, tell him to get out of here. I'm going to kill him. Inside Jingdehou. Qi Yu was fat, but he was not slow. He swept everything on the table onto the floor and angrily pointed at the servants. Where's Feng Lianqing? Why did he throw me back to the palace? That bastard, sooner or later, I'm going to kill him. Humph. It's that bastard's fault. He was surrounded by the spirit beasts again when they were about to leave the spirit beast mountain. Me for extra chapters. If it were not for Feng Lianqing, perhaps his goddess sister would have taken him along, and he would not have been nearly dragged away again. He had said long ago that Feng Lianqing could not take care of a child, but the goddess sister did not believe him. If he had not pissed on that germophobic spirit beast, he would have been eaten again. That bastard had gone overboard. What was more, Feng Lianqing had run away after he threw him back to the palace. Yuer! A hoarse voice called out. When Qi Yu turned around, someone had already rushed over and pulled him hard into her arms. The Empress trembled a bit, afraid that if she let go, the boy would run away again. Yuer, my Yuer. After a few moments, the Empress released her embrace and caressed the little fatty's face, her gaze gentle. I've let you suffer. The little prince was dumbfounded. He suddenly thought of the grievances he had suffered these past few days and cried out pitifully. This cry caused the Empress to become more distressed. She once again pulled the little prince into her arms and hugged him tightly. Yuer, my sweetheart. I will never let this happen again. The people who bullied you and hurt you must pay the price for this. Ruthlessness flashed in the Empress' eyes, and she gritted her teeth. Qi Yu blinked. What does mother mean by this, wanting to avenge me? To kill that bastard Feng Lianqing. The more Qi Yu thought about it, the happier he was. After all, Feng Lianqing was Tian Ya's disciple, so it was not that easy to kill him. But if his mother stood firmly on his side. Chapter 1491, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City 19. Hehe. No one can save Feng Lianqing this time. Yes, mother. He must be killed. That person bullied me, hurt me, and abused me. Qi Yu sobbed. The Empress' heart hurt. She wiped her tears and said, Don't worry, Yuer. Mother will avenge you. She would never let that woman go. Qi Feng had also come over. He heard Qi Ye's words and could not help but sigh softly. It seemed that this time, Yuer had really suffered a lot, otherwise. No matter how arrogant and domineering he was in his life, he would not have thought of killing someone. Yuer, remember not to run away again in the future. You have made your mother worry. Qi Fang sounded serious. The Empress snorted. Yue just came back. Why are you so mean to him? Empress. Look at how he's already been spoiled by you, running to the Spirit Beast Mountain without a word, and not bringing any guards with him. If he continues to be arrogant, he might be even more reckless, and who knows if he'll still be able to come back alive next time. The Empress, who had initially wanted to protect Qi Yu, suddenly became speechless after hearing this. Qi Fang was right this time. He could not continue to be indulged, or else it might really be difficult to handle him. Qi Yu snorted. I don't care. I can go wherever I want. I still want to go to the Spirit Beast Mountain. Of course, he was just saying that. He did not like it when his father lectured him like that. He was just trying to pick a fight with his father. Qi Fang's face turned pale, and his eyes were cold. You shut up. Wah! Qi Yu cried out pitifully. You are all bullying me. That servant from the general manor bullied me, and you guys are bullying me too. I don't want to live anymore. Sob. Yue, the Empress froze, and her face suddenly drooped. The servant of the general manor bullied you. That's right. That little servant. She was mean to me and tried to beat me. Qi Yu cried out. His small face was dirty and soaked with tears. The Empress' face grew colder. The general servant. Is it the woman that Liani has mentioned before? Liani had kindly helped that woman, and as a result, Qi Yu had misunderstood that she was a servant from the general manor, which was why he had ordered her around like that. Me for extra chapters. Unexpectedly, that woman held a grudge and almost got Qi Yu killed. And not only that, that woman had been mean to Qi Yu and had even tried to beat him up. Your Majesty. The Empress raised her eyes to look at Qi Fang. Qi Fang suddenly turned cold and said, I know what to do. Liani had actually hidden this matter from him. Liani was deliberately trying to hide the fact that she and Feng Lianqing were also the ones who had failed to protect Qi Yu when Feng Ruqing beat him up, because if the Emperor knew about it, he would definitely blame them. Of course, what Qi Fang did not know was that the little servant Qi Yu talked about was someone else. Mother, you promised to avenge me, right? Qi Yu looked at the Empress. His face was still covered in tears, and his eyes were shined with joy. That little girl Liani was going to be punished too. Great! Even though the goddess sister was fierce with him, she was still powerful and had saved him in the end. But that Liani. Who was that little girl to dare to scold him? Did she think that she could do whatever she wanted just because Tianya was protecting her? Chapter 1492, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XX. The entire Wushang city was his territory, so how dare that servant girl treated him that way? He would have his father and mother kill her. The more Qi Yu thought about this, the happier he became. A smile appeared on his face. Mother, quickly, kill her. Sure. Relax, Yue, mother will never let anyone wrong you ever again. The Empress lowered her head and caressed the little prince's head with gentleness in her eyes. Yes, her son should never suffer any grievance. A murderous intent flashed in the Empress' eyes, which then turned into resolution. At General Manor. Liani was sitting in the yard, staring at the sky as she fell into deep thoughts. No one knew what she was thinking about. A while later, a servant dashed through the door, panting as she announced, Miss, the young master is back. Liani shuddered and got up from the stone bench immediately. She was delighted that Feng Lianqing could return safely, but she was also afraid that he might expose the lies she had told. Feng Lianqing always had a straightforward personality. If he exposed her, that would mean she had to bear the sin of lying to the emperor. Soon, that familiar silhouette entered into Lianya's range of sight. Lianya composed herself and went over with a smile. Big brother Feng, you're back. Yeah. Feng Lianqing glanced at Lianya's pale face suspiciously. What's wrong with you? Where's master? The general has gone out. Big brother Feng, did you come back alone? Is the little prince? Lianya chewed her lip. Before she could finish asking, Feng Lianqing smiled. Everything went well. I've sent the little prince back to the palace, me for extra chapters. I've sent the little prince back to the palace. Sent back to the palace. Lianya was trembling, almost falling to the ground. She took a deep breath, but it could not calm the panic inside her heart. The little prince had been sent back to the palace. What about her lie? Lianya. Feng Lianqing noticed her peculiar behavior. He frowned. What's wrong? Are you unhappy that the little prince has returned? Lianya instantly regained her senses and forced a smile. And no, I was just too surprised. So the little prince is still alive. When he was taken away by the leopard, I thought, oh, it was nothing too serious. It's all thanks to Miss Feng. She helped me save the little prince. Feng Lianqing smiled. If it weren't for her, the little prince might have been a little more unfortunate. And because she had saved his life, the little prince wanted Feng Ruching to escort him back no matter what. Just how little faith did the little prince have in General Manor? Complicated emotions surged through Lianya's heart. She closed her eyes so no one could see the hatred in her gaze. Feng Ruching had saved the little prince. Had she known that the little prince would come back alive, she never would have lied. Unfortunately, a fired arrow would not return. The words she had spoken could not be taken back. Lianya, what exactly is the matter? Did the Empress and His Highness blame you for not rescuing the little prince? Feng Lianqing thought Lianya was acting strangely. He looked at her, feeling puzzled but sighed in the end and comforted her, it's okay. I was the one who had gone the wrong way and is unskilled when it comes to escorting that he ended up in danger. Now that the little prince is back home safe, everything's fine now. You don't have to worry too much. He paused before adding, the little prince was just frightened at most. I will just get a scolding from master, nothing more. Chapter 1493, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXI. Yeah, Lianya forced a smile. I'm not worried. After all, I'm from General Manor. His Highness might forgive me out of mercy for the general. I just happen to be traumatized by the Spirit Beast Mountains incident and have yet to regain peace of mind. Oh. Feng Lianqing understood. So that's what it is. Then, you have to get more rest. I will also get some rest. After that, Feng Lianqing walked away. For some reason, he felt as if the guards who had followed him to the Spirit Beast Mountain wanted to tell him something with their eyes. Yet, when he asked them, none of them gave him any answers. Feng Lianqing frowned but thought not much of it. The reason being that he could never imagine Lianya pushing all the responsibility of that incident to Feng Ruching. He also could not imagine his childhood friend, the girl he had grown up with, to be such a vicious and heartless woman. It was exactly because he did not know this side of her, he had missed the best opportunity to ask. At the foot of the Spirit Beast Mountain, Feng Ruching was glaring at the guards surrounding them. She cocked an eyebrow. State Preceptor, our journey hasn't been peaceful at all. Yeah. Nan Xian was calm as a breeze and aloof as the cold moon. Let me take care of this. Soon after he had spoken, Nan Xian dashed into the crowd like a gentle gust of wind. These men were skilled fighters, but there was still a limit to their capabilities. In an instant, they all fell into a pool of blood and stopped breathing. Feng Ruching was mildly stunned. Nansien, don't you find these people suspicious? Why did they surround us for no apparent reason? Nansien frowned. That's true. Why didn't you leave one alive? I want to know who's behind this. I didn't think of that. Nansien squatted down to rummage through the dead bodies before finding 2 tokens. Wushang City was written on one of it while the other only had one character, Imperial. Me for extra chapters. Coming from Wushang City must mean they're related to the little fatty. The little fatty. Feng Ruching narrowed her eyes. I saved that little fatty out of kindness, but is he trying to return my grace with revenge? I must have been too lenient when punishing him. I should have whipped him to the point where he wouldn't dare to have any thoughts about harming me. Although the little fatty was a tad arrogant, he was a child. She had thought that he was not that bad, but... he was thoroughly rotten. Mother, are we going to Wushang City? Fu Chen turned to Feng Ruching and asked. Feng Ruching smirked. Of course. I'm going to get back at that little fatty. What's more, if I don't go, these people will keep coming after us. It's too annoying. Mother. Xiaoqing nibbled the tiny carrot in its hands. That little fatty is nasty despite his appearance. He must still hold a grudge against you and wants to take revenge. Mother, why don't we look for that fatty now in secret and give him a nice whipping? Yeah, that works too. Feng Ruching rubbed her chin. But there are many skilled fighters in the palace, so we better be careful after all. Fu Chen, why don't you guys stay in the medium for now? With a lift of her arm, she returned the 2 little beings into the medium. State Preceptor, I wanted to leave the mountain immediately, but I've changed my mind. Let's go find the leopards after all, and adopt a few abandoned spirit beasts on the way. Feng Ruching narrowed her eyes. Whoever dares to attack me, it'll make them bleed no matter the cost. He hurried over, wanting to get close to Feng Ruching, but a leopard's roar made him stop abruptly in his tracks. Miss Feng, is there a misunderstanding? Weren't we just fine a while ago? What are you doing now? After all, they were acquaintances who had made it through an ordeal together. How could they just turn against each other so suddenly? Feng Ruching lowered her gaze and scanned Feng Lianqing. Where's the little fatty? Feng Lianqing laughed sheepishly. Do you mean the little prince? He's in the palace. Oh. He returned my grace with revenge. I'm here to educate him nicely. She would not stoop to the level of a kid. If a child misbehaved, just hit him. If he continued to misbehave, hit him again. Feng Lianqing was stunned. Return your grace with revenge? Yeah. He sent people to cut off our path, wanting to kill us. Feng Ruching's tone was calm as if she was talking about something unrelated to her. Feng Lianqing blinked. The little prince sent people to cut off Feng Ruching and Nanxian's path. Chapter 1495, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXAI. That's impossible. Without waiting for Feng Lianqing to deny this, Feng Ruching tossed the 2 tokens in front of him. Take a look and see if this belongs to him. Feng Lianqing squatted down. When he had taken a closer look at the tokens, his expression stiffened. It's true that these authority tokens belong to the palace guards. There's no problem then. At the palace of Wushang City, she only knew the little fatty. The only person capable of mobilizing the imperial guards was him as well. Hence, other than him, she could not think of anyone else. In fact, it was no wonder why Feng Ruching would blame the little fatty for this. She would never have imagined that it was Lianyi who had tossed the responsibility of the little fatty's disappearance to her. General Manner had caused the little fatty's disappearance. She only reminded them that they had gone the wrong way. She never thought that the incident could be related to her in that way. And so this became the cause of her misunderstanding toward the fatty. Feng Lianqing. A sharp voice called from behind Feng Lianqing did not give him a chance to explain anything to Feng Ruqing. He turned to see Qi Feng dressed in yellow robes as he slowly made his way over. Following beside him, surprisingly, was the Empress dressed just as magnificently. The Empress gazed at Feng Ruqing resentfully and furiously. It was like a knife threatening to slice her to pieces. Feng Ruqing looked at the Empress, confused as to why the latter displayed so much hatred toward her. But after some thought of how she had just destroyed the city gates and led a group of spirit beasts to attack the city, it was only natural that the Empress hated her. Feng Lianqing, is this what the general taught you? When faced with enemies invading our territory, how do you still have the heart for trivial conversation? Feng Lianqing's eyes dimmed slightly. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Miss Feng is definitely not that kind of person. I think you must have been bewitched by beauty and have your mind muddled by this pregnant woman. Guards! Kill every spirit beast invading the city and apprehend these two people. Take them back to the palace for a decision to be made, me for extra chapters. Misunderstanding. Ha! This woman laid a hand on Yuer, and now she's here to attack the city. What misunderstandings could there be? Nan Xian calmly protected Feng Ruqing in his embrace. Following a thundering sound, the guards closing in on Feng Ruqing were sent flying with a lift of his hand. They fell to the ground in a battered state. Your Highness. Feng Lianqing was getting anxious. This is really a misunderstanding. Just you let me explain. Shut up. Feng Ruqing and Qi Feng both turned to Feng Lianqing and barked. Feng Lianqing kept quiet out of fright, the nervousness still evident in his eyes. Where's the little fatty? Feng Ruqing asked indifferently. How dare you? The Empress' expression faltered slightly. How dare you be this disrespectful toward my son? Not only do I disrespect him, but I also want to dangle him in the air and give him a good beating. A wild child like this needs to be whipped to be obedient. You, the Empress pointed furiously at Feng Ruqing. Even if my son is at fault, he doesn't deserve a punishment like this. If you treat him that way, I won't forgive you. At this, Feng Lianqing could not resist interrupting. Your Grace, there are Imperial Guards with authority tokens to murder Miss Feng. The little fatty has, perhaps, sent those men. The Empress smirked. Yuer would never endanger a person's life casually. His Highness sent those men. Feng Lianqing believed that a misunderstanding existed from the start. Someone must have stolen the tokens and impersonated the Imperial Guards to deal with Feng Ruqing. However, after hearing the Empress' words, his body stiffened slightly. He turned to look at the Empress in disbelief. Chapter 1496, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City Ziv Y. The Empress smiled coldly. She bullied my son. Of course, I can't let her off that easily. If it were not for Feng Lianqing's strength and capabilities, her son might have lost his life. How could she forgive someone who had almost harmed her son? Feng Lianqing was mildly stunned. Did His Highness and the Empress hear about Feng Ruqing whipping the little price? But why did the Emperor not punish him? After all, it was his fault for not protecting the little prince. Your Highness, Your Grace, Miss Feng can't be blamed for this. It was because of my lack of skills, that's enough. Qi Feng waved impatiently. You've done well on this journey, and you do not lack in skills. Because of you, Yuer could return safely, and thanks to this, I've decided not to tell the general about what happened today. You must be tired. Go home and rest. Feng Lianqing was flabbergasted. It was clearly Feng Ruqing's credit, but how did it become his instead? Your Highness, it wasn't me, Feng Lianqing, one more word from you, and I'll make a decree for the 2 girls from the Hellion family to marry you. Master would never agree to it. He believes in mutual affection and would never let me marry someone I don't love, much less marry 2, Qi Fang smirked. Your master is not in Wushang City. If I force you to go through with the bridal night, everything will be too late by the time he returns. You won't be able to get away by then. Feng Lianqing was dumbstruck. This was too shameless. He dared not say another word and eyed Feng Lianqing sympathetically. He even gave her a nice signal, prompting her to leave at once. However, Feng Lianqing did not look at him. She stared straight at Qi Fang. You're the ones who gave the orders? Yes. Oh, so the little fatty still told on me. But he's the reason regardless, so when I catch him, I'll hang him on the city walls and whip him. You, the Empress' face darkened. This last dared to be so arrogant in front of them. It was no wonder she would do something to harm Yuer. If that was the case, they should not be blamed for not showing mercy. Everyone, charge me for extra chapters. Upon Qi Fang's command, the guards rushed over and immediately appeared before Nan Xian. The whole time, Nan Xian did not speak. He only shielded Feng Lianqing behind him, ensuring that she was safe. The spirit beasts have surrounded Feng Lianqing as well, loyally protecting her like dogs. Just then, at the Imperial study room, the little fatty was flipping the book in his hand without much interest. There was impatience in his eyes. Ever since coming back a few days ago, Father keeps forcing me to read. What's so good about these books? They're boring. He slammed the book in his hand on the table with a loud thud and scanned the room. Now that Father isn't here, even if I snuck out, he wouldn't know. It was impossible to make him read. He would never study seriously for the rest of his life. The little prince tipped his chin up and walked out of the imperial study room arrogantly without a care in the world. He had just stepped out of the room when a eunuch hurried over nervously. Your Highness, spirit beasts have invaded the city, and they're looking for you. Spirit beasts? The little prince's whole body quivered. He recalled the nightmarish days he had spent in the Spirit Beast Mountain. Why are the spirit beasts looking for me? Could all the spirit beasts in the mountain have known that I have a lot of meat, so they're here to catch and eat me? No, the spirit beasts have been led here by a girl, and it's a pregnant woman. She is now battling the Emperor's men at the city gates. The Emperor has sent someone here to ask me to inform you not to go out. Chapter 1497, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXV. He had just spoken when the little prince dashed out of the palace like a gust of wind. The eunuch felt weak in his knees from fright. Your Highness, you can't go outside. Thankfully, before the little prince had gotten far, 2 guards had blocked his way. Your Highness, it's dangerous outside. You can't go out there. Get lost. The little fatty's excessive fat was shaking as he kicked the guard. Get lost immediately, or I'll get mother to cripple you. The guard winced but dared not make a sound. We have received orders from the Emperor not to let you leave. You, the little fatty's eyes widened as he glared at them furiously. The nerve of you. A cold voice barked not too far away, sounding menacing. Who has allowed you to block my 9th brother's way? When the little prince lifted his head, he saw an elegantly dressed young man slowly walking over. The little prince snorted and turned away, unwilling to look at him. 9th brother, I was just joking with you back then. Why did you go to the spirit beast forest? The young man was smiling brightly. You ended up making father and mother worry a lot. Chiyu pouted, clearly reluctant to speak to this young man. The young man raised his head to look at the guards blocking the way. My 9th brother is a natural-born coward. Did you think he would go to the city gate? Father is personally there at the city gates to stop the intruders so those people wouldn't be able to enter. My brother is just feeling playful and wants to leave the palace when father's not here. Chi-Yu kept quiet and pursed his lips, not daring to say a word. The guards exchanged glances, feeling hesitant. The young man continued, "Forget it. I'll take my 9th brother out personally. If father asks about this, you can use this as an explanation. If you continue to stop 9th brother, don't say I didn't remind you that you'll both be tortured to the point where you wish you were dead with his temper." The guard's expressions faltered slightly. The little prince truly had a terrible temper, and he liked to hold grudges. If they insisted on not letting him out to play, he would definitely take revenge on them in the future. "Your Highness, then if the Emperor asks, just tell him that I took him out to play." The young man smiled gently. "Me for extra chapters." "Understood, 3rd Prince." The guards heaved a quiet sigh of relief. With the 3rd Prince's word, they would not have to worry about giving the Emperor an explanation or having to face the little prince's revenge. Outside the palace gates, the young man stopped and looked back at the wide-open palace gates. He then turned to the little prince with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. 9th brother, you shouldn't have come back alive." The little prince glared at the young man. "What does it have anything to do with you whether or not I return? You won't be able to harm me that easily and my mother won't forgive you. Is that so?" With a smile, the young man lowered his gaze at the little prince. "Then, I'd like to see which one of us will get the last laugh, ha ha ha." The young man laughed out loud and walked past the little prince, not giving him another glance as he headed toward the streets. The little prince was not in the mood to care about him. Like a little meatball, he ran in the direction of the city gates. The streets of Wushang City remained silent as usual, but it was filled with bloodshed and slaughter outside the city gates. As Feng Lianqing watched this scene before him, he felt more anxious. He never thought the little prince would tell the emperor about Miss Feng whipping him. It'd be great if Master was here. Master will definitely have the power to stop all this. The empress' eyes were venomous, and her gaze was like a knife as she stared fixedly at Feng Lianqing. Chapter 1498, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXVI. At the thought of how Yuer almost died in this woman's hands, she felt exceptionally enraged and wanted to slice this woman to pieces at once. "Father! Mother!" A familiar voice suddenly called out from behind. The Empress' face was instantly drained of blood as she turned to see a round body, shaped like a ball, running over. "Yuer!" Her lips were trembling. "Why did you come here for?" She had deliberately ordered someone to inform the palace not to let Yuer leave, so why was he here? "I'm here to look for." Yuer easily caught sight of Feng Lianqing standing beside Ah Hua and was immediately delighted. "Goddess, sister." Before that word could leave his lips, countless vines had slithered across the ground and grabbed his legs to dangle him up in the air. The little fatty was dumbstruck, his eyes looking lost. What did he do wrong this time? Why did pretty sister want to hit him again? "Yuer!" The Empress' eyes went bloodshot as she yelled at the top of her lungs, "Let Yuer go!" Feng Lianqing ignored her and narrowed her eyes at the little fatty being dangled in midair. "Little fatty, I've really misunderstood you. To think you've learned to tell on me and got your father to come and get revenge for you." The little fatty was confused. "I didn't." "Put me down quickly." "I didn't tell on you." "Didn't tell on me?" "If you didn't tell on me, why did your parents send people over to hold Nan Xian and me off?" Feng Lianqing smiled widely as she asked, "It seems that your butt is itchy again and is asking for a beating." The little fatty shuddered. When he recalled that stinging pain, he got even more anxious. "I didn't." "That's enough." The Empress' eyes were red as she glared furiously at Feng Lianqing. "So what if Yuer tells on you?" You've clearly done it, so why won't you admit it? The little fatty was almost in tears from being angered by his mother. He kept struggling. Mother, why did you harm me? Why? Since when did I complain about her to you? Am I that kind of person? The spirit beasts below have stopped moving as they opened their mouths wide to wait for the little fatty. If he managed to struggle free, he would fall right into the spirit beast's mouth. Me for extra chapters. Perhaps it was because of this that the little fatty had stopped struggling and obediently let the vines dangle him in the air in that pitiful state. Don't you worry. With father and mother here, no one would dare to bully you. The Empress' face darkened. These people will have to pay the price. The little fatty was really crying now. 2 rows of tears appeared as his nose started dripping. She didn't bully me, really. The Empress' gaze was dark. You really don't have to be afraid. Didn't you say she was bullying you at the palace? Mother will avenge you now. Feng Ruqing narrowed her eyes and looked up at Qi Yu. Even Feng Liangqing subconsciously looked at him. Did the little prince really tell on her? TSK. I didn't know he was such a petty person. It seems that Miss Feng whipped him too lightly last time. The little fatty was dumbfounded, feeling his heart go cold. He had tried so hard to leave a good impression in Feng Ruqing's mind, but it was gone now. Everything was gone. Mother. He paused, deciding to explain himself one more time. Are you misunderstanding something? What? The Empress was stunned and looked up at the little prince. I didn't tell on her, and I wouldn't ever have told you that she's whipped me before, and you've clearly promised me before that you would take down Feng Lianqing and Liani for me. Chapter 1499, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXVI. There was silence. Feng Lianqing and Liani. Qi Feng was briefly silent before asking, the ones you were complaining about was Feng Lianqing and Liani? Not her. Seeing that Qi Feng had finally understood him, the little fatty was almost in tears from feeling touched. That's right. It's those 2 idiots. The ones I want to kill are them. The Empress was stunned for a while, unable to speak. After some time, she said, but this lass almost killed you. The little fatty was crying tears and snot. Mother, I beg you, stop trying to harm me. How can I not know if she's trying to harm me? It's clearly you who's trying to harm me. The Empress' face turned dark. If the little fatty was not her son, she would have slapped him. She was his mother, so how could she harm him? How dare this little fatty say something like that? Back then, wasn't it her fault that you were taken away by a spirit beast? She had hit you off a guard's back and made you fall into a leopard mouth, so you have ended up being taken away by a leopard. There are leopards in this city invasion, so it's obvious that she has set this up with the leopards. Feng Lianqing was dumbstruck. It was his fault that the little fatty was taken away by the leopard, but no one blamed him after returning to Wushang City. The emperor had even commended him. He had thought that the little fatty had put in a good word for him. But it seemed like everything was a mistake. Feng Lianqing wiped the sweat on his forehead. Both of you must have been mistaken. Qi Feng looked at Feng Lianqing. What? Back then. I was the one who had hit the guard and caused him to throw off the little prince that the little prince ended up in the mouth of a spirit beast. Having been influenced by Feng Ruqing calling the little prince Little Fatty, he had almost called out this nickname. Thankfully, he managed to hold the words back. Qi Feng frowned. That's not right. It was Liani who has told us that this woman resented Yuer and deliberately wanted to harm him. Feng Lianqing was stunned. Liani? Liani is trying to harm Miss Feng. At the thought of this possibility, Feng Liangqing's expression darkened as his aura grew cold, mingled with hints of fury. After hearing Qi Fang's words, the little fatty let out a sigh of relief. He lowered his head to look at Feng Ruqing. Did you see that? It wasn't me who told on you. It's that servant girl from General Manor trying to harm you. Quick, put me down. I'm not the type of person who would complain, me for extra chapters. Humph. Even if he wanted to complain, he would only complain about Feng Lianqing. This idiot had endangered his life a few times. Feng Ruqing was surprised and finally realized that she had misunderstood the little fatty. She laughed awkwardly and retracted her vines. I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to harm me, thud. The little fatty fell from the air and landed on the ground. That fall made his whole body ache, and his teeth stung with pain. However, he did not cry this time but got up swiftly and pounced at Feng Ruqing. A cold glint appeared in Feng Ruqing's eyes. She extended her leg. Fortunately, from previous experience, the little fatty managed to stop himself in time to maintain a leg's distance with Feng Ruqing. Goddess sister, did you see that? It's that bitch Liani trying to harm me. I really didn't tell on you. She must have felt displeased with me and tried to harm me. Feng Ruqing cocked up an eyebrow. Stay further away from me, man. Oh, okay. The little fatty took a few steps back, obediently, blinking, and being well behaved. Qi Fang was speechless. The Empress was speechless. They felt that this boy in front was not Qi Yu. Chapter 1500, leading the spirit beasts to attack the city XXVI was as if he had become another person. Qi Fang's handsome face stiffened slightly. He turned to look at Feng Lianqing. It really wasn't her who harmed Yuer. Feng Lianqing was angered, so his tone sounded cold. It was my mistake that had almost harmed the little prince. It was also Miss Feng, who was good at persuading, that she persuaded the leopards to let go of the little prince and offer themselves to Miss Feng. However, you guys ended up returning her grace with revenge. If it weren't for Miss Feng, the prince might have died long ago. Oh, right, when we went to find the prince, we couldn't locate him for the longest time. It was Miss Feng who led us to the prince. If we were even a little later, the prince might not have been able to return alive. He admitted his mistakes. It was clearly him who had almost endangered the little prince's life. If it were not for Feng Ruqing, the little prince really would not be able to return alive. The Empress' expression was exceptionally dark. Liani told us that it was you and her who have painstakingly found the prince. She never mentioned this young lady. And she said to us herself that this young lady resented Yuer and wanted to harm him. Feng Lianqing closed his eyes in pain. He suddenly remembered the day when he had brought the little prince back to Wushang City. Lianya's expression had been extremely odd. That day, he did not give it much thought. Now that he thought about it, he realized that it was because of the little prince's safe return. His childhood friend whom he had grown up with all these years. He suddenly realized that he never truly understood her. How dare she trick us and play us like monkeys? Qi Fang's knuckles were cracking as green veins popped up on his arms. If Liani did not belong to General Manor, he would have sent people over right now to apprehend her. He still had to show some respect for the general. Mississippi. The Empress looked guilty. She had treated her benefactor like an enemy and almost killed her by mistake. This mistake was too grave. If Feng Ruqing had really died from this, she could never wipe off her guilty conscience for as long as she lived. We have misunderstood you, me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing looked indifferent, not saying a word and not even looking at the Empress. The Empress seemed embarrassed, but she did not say anything. After all, she was the one at fault for returning kindness with revenge. Lianqing. Qi Fang turned to look at Lianqing. When Liani told us about this, she had used the honor of the general. I trust in the general's character, so I would naturally believe the people from his manner as well. But Lianya's personality is not pure, so she's not fit to stay in general manner. The Empress' expression changed slightly. Your Majesty, you're not thinking of letting Liany go after she has caused such a huge misunderstanding, are you? Qi Fang let out a bitter laugh. I'm showing the general some respect and letting him deal with her when he gets back. And what if he doesn't deal with her? The Empress laughed coldly. I'm the head of the harem, and your Majesty is the supreme ruler. Don't we at least have the right to deal with a little lass? My dear. The general has saved Wushang City before. Hence, he had to show him some respect. The Empress was smirking. I don't care. I only know that Liany has intentionally framed someone and almost made me commit an unforgivable mistake. She knew how dear Yuer is to me, and still, she did this. It's clear that she has done this on purpose, so she can't be forgiven. Qi Fang was a little hesitant. He could afford not to show anyone respect, but he could not do so with the general. Chapter 1501, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City. 6, My dear, let's wait for the general's return to decide. Don't worry. I won't let Yuer feel this grievance for nothing. As for this young lady, Qi Fang paused as guilt crept into his expression. I will compensate her properly. It was due to his deep trust in Liany that they had misunderstood this young woman. Although the Empress' expression was a little sullen, she had other more important things to take care of, so she refrained from arguing with Qi Fang. She walked over to Feng Ruqing, guilt written all over her face. I was mistaken. Feng Ruqing gave her a cold glance before turning to Nan Xian. Let's go. Sure. Nan Xian smiled and caressed Feng Ruqing's head with a gentle look in his eyes. After seeing that it was just a misunderstanding, the spirit beasts retreated. However, even though this was a misunderstanding, the fact remained that someone in Wushang City was trying to kill Feng Ruqing. Qi Yu got anxious. Are you guys leaving just like that? Feng Ruqing raised an eyebrow at Qi Yu. Did you want a beating? Qi Yu glanced carefully at Feng Ruqing before looking swiftly at the spirit beasts beside her. All of these are my parents' fault. I'm innocent, so I'd like to come along with you. I want to call you my master. His goal of going to the Spirit Beast Mountain before was to seal an agreement with a spirit beast. Even if he failed to do so, he wanted to steal a spirit beast egg at least. However, he failed and almost died a few times under the claws of those spirit beasts. Now that he saw how many spirit beasts would follow Feng Ruqing with just a wag of her finger, a resolution slowly formed in his heart. I won't take you. Feng Ruqing rejected him without consideration. The little prince was flustered. I will behave and stop causing trouble. Just take me as your disciple. I will study well and not let you down. Everyone in Wushang City knew that the young prince, Qi Yu, was arrogant and a bully. He would not even listen to the emperor. However, this arrogant Qi Yu was now so well behaved, just so he could worship a woman as his teacher. Me for extra chapters. Qi Feng was mildly stunned. He finally studied Feng Ruqing's appearance, perhaps hoping to see what magical powers this young woman had to make Qi Yu behave this way. Yuer, the Empress wanted to say something, but Qi Yu turned and shot her a glare. This is all your fault. Why did you guys attack Goddess Sister? She saved me on the Spirit Beast Mountain a few times, unlike that idiot, Feng Lianqing. That man can't even look after a child and has almost endangered my life. Feng Lianqing was speechless. He could not deny it. After all, what this little prince said sounded like the truth. Mississippi. The Empress looked up sheepishly at Feng Ruqing. We have misunderstood you just now. Can you, Yeah, like the issue of sending men to the Spirit Beast Mountain to hold us off can be resolved just by calling it a misunderstanding. Feng Ruqing looked cold and indifferent. The Empress' expression stiffened. It was indeed their fault in the first place, and now that her son was supporting the outsider, she dared not vent her frustrations. What would you like then, miss? We can compensate you in any way. It's just that he would like to have you as his teacher. This Empress had indulged the little prince to the extent of spoiling him. Whatever the little prince wanted, she would think of every way to get it for him. She would not even ask for Feng Ruqing's identity so that she could satisfy her child. Chapter 1502, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXX. My dear, Qi Feng was frowning slightly. Yue was, after all, a prince. How could his master be a random person? Moreover, they knew nothing about the identities of these people. How could they leave Yue with them and feel at ease? The Empress' expression stiffened. If you want help Yue put in a good word, that's fine, but how can you stop him from doing what he wants? I don't care as long as he's happy. For some reason, after hearing the Empress' words, Feng Ruqing glanced at the Empress oddly. There was a complicated emotion behind her gaze. State Preceptor, don't you think this little fatty is just like who I was before? Back then, Feng Tianyu had also indulged her Bodhi's original owner in becoming this way. The only difference was that Feng Tianyu would still educate her, but this Empress was just spoiling him endlessly. Nan Xian smiled calmly. That's true. Yeah. Feng Ruqing smiled. Her grin was laced with sarcasm as her gaze at the Empress became sharp. I'm not sure if you're the little fatty's biological mother. The Empress was stunned. Her expression darkened. What do you mean, miss? If I hadn't known, I'd have thought you were his stepmother. Stepmother? The Empress' expression was completely sunken. If I'm his stepmother, would I adore him this much? Miss, it's true that I was indiscriminate earlier and that Liani has tricked me. I was at fault, and I will admit it, but you can't deny my motherly love for my Yue. Spoiling your child is like murdering him. Do you understand? Feng Ruqing smirked. It's no wonder that he's this arrogant and obnoxious. He won't even respect anyone and is reckless enough to rush into the Spirit Beast Mountain on his own. Did you ever think that if Feng Lianqing and I did not show up in time, he would have lost his life, me for extra chapters? The Empress paled slightly, and her body trembled. If it was not for this young lady and Feng Lianqing, Yue would have really been gone. The way I see it, because of your indulgence and adoration, this little fatty must have bullied the guards in the palace frequently to the point that when he leaves the palace gates, no one will dare to stop him. Feng Ruqing sauntered over to the Empress with her heavy aura. Hence, he has gained the opportunity to enter the Spirit Beast Mountain. But if you let the palace guards know that both of you are the true owner of the palace, would they have disobeyed you and let him go out on his own? The Empress staggered a little with her hands clenched into fists. She bit down hard on her lip. It happened the last time when those guards had allowed Yue to leave on his own. It was the same this time. She had clearly instructed them not to let Yue leave the palace, but they still let him out, only because they would rather disobey her than disobey Yue. Children are born a blank slate. It is how you paint on this paper that matters. I don't believe in naturally born wild children. They're just spoiled. When faced with such wild children, you just have to hit them. If he keeps misbehaving, just hit him again. Hit him until he listens. Boys have thicker and rougher skin. He's not a little girl, so are you afraid he'll break? Feng Ruqing smirked and asked. What's more, he can't be so lucky all the time. There are numerous skilled men in this land of no return. Wushang City is just the tip of an iceberg. If this wild child grows up to provoke someone outside, wouldn't he be dragging Wushang City down? Chapter 1503, Leading the Spirit Beasts to Attack the City XXXI. Each of Feng Ruking's sentences made the Empress' heart shudder. Her face became pale as snow. Yue had always been a child in her heart, and it was normal for a child to be naughty. She did not want to be too strict with him. However, it seemed like she never thought that spoiling him was destroying him. Qi Feng looked up at Feng Ruqing with admiration in his eyes instead. This young lady made a lot of sense. Previously, no matter how much he advised her, the Empress would not listen or consider the consequences. Whenever he wanted to teach Yue a lesson, the Empress would cry, and he would give in. This resulted in Yue gaining such an arrogant personality. The Empress' lips were trembling. I never thought too much about it. Seeing how you guys believed in Lianya's words so easily. I can tell that you guys don't have much intelligence. It's only natural that you didn't think of this, said Feng Ruqing with a dazzling smile. If someone had said this to her in the past, the Empress would have flown into a fit of rage. However, this time, her mind was filled with what Feng Ruqing had said earlier. Her thoughts were a mess. Was she wrong? Had she been wrong all these years? Should she not have spoiled Yue? Mississippi. Qi Feng pondered before saying, since it was a misunderstanding, can you stay for a short while so I can compensate this young man and you? Feng Ruqing was actually here for Lianyi, and she just happened to come across an incident like this. Since the matter had been resolved, she was not in a hurry to leave. However, little fatty, stay further away from me. I don't like males. Oh. The little fatty was just about to get closer to Feng Ruqing when he suddenly heard her say this. He pouted and stopped as grievance appeared in his tiny eyes. The Empress did not say anything else. Feng Ruking's voice continued to resonate in her mind, wreaking a havoc. Your Majesty, I'm a little tired, so I'm going back to rest. Get someone to escort Yue back later. Having said that, she left immediately. Her slender fingers massaged her temples gently while staggering as she made her way back to the palace, me for extra chapters. Your Majesty, Miss Feng, since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, I'll take my leave as well. I still have some matters to take care of. Feng Lianking's expression was mildly dark. He squeezed his fists as he hurried away. At Feng Manor, Lianyi was sitting inside her room feeling jittery. The nervousness was clear on her face. Ever since Feng Lianqing had come back with the little prince, she could not feel at ease. However, for the past few days, the palace had been quiet. The Emperor and Empress never came to deal with her. It was like they did not know anything. This did not make her feel any better but instead made her even more anxious. Her heart was being suspended in midair, unable to calm down. Bang! Suddenly, an extended leg kicked the door open, startling Lianyi, and made her stand up immediately. She looked at the door nervously. Standing at the door was a young man. This young man was handsome and sophisticated. However, his expression was currently twisted, and his gaze was sharp as knives, making Lianyi's already flustered heart panic even more. Big Brother Feng, what happened? Lianyi. Feng Lianqing walked slowly into the room. He was expressionless as he stared straight at her. Back when you returned to Wushang City, did you say something to His Highness? Lianyi was startled. She suppressed the panic in her heart and forced a smile. Chapter 1504, Lianyi's hatred. I didn't. Is that so? Feng Lianqing smirked. You didn't tell His Highness that it was Miss Feng who harmed the little prince, did you? Lianyi shuddered and lifted her head in fright. Big Brother Feng had found out about this after all. She bit down hard on her lip as her body trembled. Endless fear was spreading in her chest, and her heart threatened to stop beating. Lieni, why did you do this? Miss Feng didn't do anything, so why did you want to frame her? Feng Lianking's expression was white with fury. I found it odd from the start. Why didn't His Highness punish me for losing the little prince but had commended me instead? So it was all because of you. Lieni was pale as fear surfaced in her eyes. I wasn't trying to harm her. I just wanted to save you, Big Brother Feng. I did all of this because of you. Feng Lianqing closed his eyes. Since when did his pure and kind childhood friend become such a stranger? She had become so different that he could not recognize her. After a moment, Feng Lianqing opened his eyes. Lieni, when have you become this way? I thought you were just aloof but still had a pure heart. How did you end up like this? Does Master know about this? The hands on either side of Lieni were shaking. Brother Feng, I was afraid that His Highness would punish you, so I did this to free you from punishment. I don't have any ulterior motives, and am not the type of person who frames others. I really didn't do it on purpose, right? She had done all this for Big Brother Feng. She had done this so that he would not receive any punishment. She did not do this for herself. Feng Lianqing stared at Lieni for a moment. Do you still like that man named Nan Xian? Feng Lianqing had noticed Liania's intention from the start, so he had warned her at the Spirit Beast Mountain. He thought Lieni had understood his meaning and given up on that married man, but she still ended up doing something unforgivable like this. Lieni shook her head nervously. I won't become someone's concubine. He has a wife, how could I like him, me for extra chapters? She could almost believe what she had just said. Feng Lianqing snorted. You don't want to be a concubine, so you plan to harm Miss Feng and take her place. Lieni took a few steps back and stared at Feng Lianqing, disappointed. We grew up together. Don't you believe me? Big Brother Feng, in your eyes, am I such a person? I only told this lie because of you. Since when have I done anything for me? The funny thing was, Big Brother Feng did not believe her. I don't care about your explanation. When Master comes back, I will report this to him. Feng Lianqing looked at Lieni one last time before turning to leave. Lieni panicked completely. She rushed over to hug Feng Lianking's leg as tears poured from her eyes. Her voice was sorrowful. Big Brother Feng, don't tell the general. He'll chase me out. Feng Lianqing stopped. He said nothing to the girl clinging on to him. Big Brother Feng, I beg you, don't tell the general. If I'm chased out of General Manor, I'll definitely die. Liania's voice was hoarse. I've never spoken about my past because to me, that was a nightmare. That's why I have always claimed to be an orphan. Chapter 1505, Liania's hatred. Feng Lianqing closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Big Brother Feng, I won't become a concubine, and I won't do something like stealing another person's love. My biological father was seduced away by a witch, and he abandoned my mother and me. He was even deluded by that witch and announced that he would kill my mother and me. My mother was only able to continue living by his side because of my grandfather's protection. But, Liania's face was covered in tears as she continued sorrowfully, but I was constantly abused by him and that witch at home, so my mother sent me away. The general just happened to pass by and took pity on me, which was why he had brought me back. All these years, he knew that I now belonged to General Manor and have a relatively high position here, so he wouldn't bully my mother. If I lost General Manor's protection, my mother and I would both lose our lives. I beg you, Big Brother Feng. Please don't tell the general, I beg you, all these years, she had feigned obedience before the general to finally gain his trust after much difficulty. Even if she was different from Big Brother Feng because she did not have the talent to become his disciple, the people in general manner treated her like a young miss. The general, too, treated her like she was his granddaughter. However, the general had never allowed even a speck of dust in his eyes. If he knew that she had done such a thing, he would definitely be furious and chase her out of general manner. Feng Lianqing was not moved and kept his back facing the girl. Lianyi looked up with pitiful eyes. The general is a righteous person. He would never tolerate such a thing even if it was his biological granddaughter. So, if he finds out, I won't be able to stay here anymore. Big Brother Feng, seeing as how we grew up together, please don't tell him. Feng Lianqing laughed coldly. Even if I don't tell, do you think His Highness would keep quiet? Lianyi shuddered as fear filled her eyes. Me for extra chapters. Feng Lianqing continued to laugh coldly. Moreover, the Empress was enraged. It was His Highness who had said he wanted to wait for Master to return so they could discuss this. Otherwise, the Empress would have been here by now. Lianyi's body went limp as she fell, paralyzed to the ground. Her eyes were filled with fear as she asked, "But I have only made this mistake because of you. I did this for you. You can't leave me like this, Big Brother Feng." Feng Lianqing closed his eyes in pain. After a long while, he opened his eyes. "Yes, you only did this to absolve me. Hence, I will go to Miss Feng later and apologize. You better go and beg for her forgiveness as well. One other thing, since this incident happened because of me, I will shoulder this responsibility. When Master returns, I will tell him myself." He and Lianyi had both grown up under the general's care, but why had Lianyi become so frightening? She was even worse than Helianyu. Helianyu was only rotten on the surface. She would never stab someone in the back or tell lies to frame someone else. She would, at most, lecture the people she did not like. But Lianyi. On the surface, she was kind, gentle, and loyal. But in truth, she was devious, selfish, and a fiend. "Lianyi, I finally understand why between you and Helianyu, Master prefers Helianyu." Before he left, Feng Lianqing paused again and smirked. "Perhaps Master has already noticed something, but he finds you pitiful, and since you've never actually done anything wrong, he just kept you around." Chapter 1506, Lianyi's Hatred 3. Even if it were the cat, his master would still care for it since he raised it for so many years. Let alone a human. Even if his master found something strange in the end, he would still keep Lianyi with him. After all these years, how could he kick her out? His master liked to say some harsh words, but in reality, he was a soft-hearted person. As long as one did not commit a big crime, he would not drive that person away. Feng Lianqing sighed lightly and said no more. He did not even look at Lianyi again and slowly walked toward the door. After Feng Lianqing had left, Lianyi sat on the ground in despair. "No. I can't just sit here and wait for it to happen. I can't leave the general manor." Lianyi's eyes sank as she slowly stood up from the ground. No matter what, she needed to settle this matter before Tianya returned. Tianya had always liked Helianyu, and if she could make Helianyu take her side, perhaps there was still hope for her. Lianyi suddenly felt pathetic. She was the first person Tianya had brought back, but in the end, she still needed to rely on the woman she once despised the most to stay in this manor. However, there was no other way for her. In front of the inn, Feng Lianqing stood straight-backed under the light breeze, looking a little worried. Was Maiden Feng going to this inn just now? "Yes, Master." Well, Feng Lianqing was a little hesitant, but he ended up taking a step into the inn. From a distance, he saw the two people sitting in the corner of the inn. The young girl still had a smile on her face, and the domineering frown between her eyebrows always gave Feng Lianqing a sense of familiarity. The man sitting next to her smiled faintly as his eyes were fixed upon Feng Ruqing. Me for extra chapters. It was truly a lovely couple. Feng Lianqing did not know what was wrong with him, but he just could not stand to see people showing affection in front of him. He always felt that these people were deliberately mocking him, a single guy. Maiden Feng, Master Nan Xian. Feng Lianqing regained his senses and walked toward Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian smilingly. Feng Ruqing glanced at him. Do you think a pregnant woman like me can still be called maiden? The corner of Feng Lianqing's mouth twitched. Lady Nan. Feng Ruqing's facial expression returned to its initial state. What do you want from us? Perhaps it was because of Liani, she was even a bit cold toward Feng Lianqing, and she had to stay in this place to investigate Liani's background. Lady Nan, I've come to apologize, Feng Lianqing smiled bitterly. I didn't expect Liani to do such a thing, causing the Emperor and the Empress to misunderstand Lady Nan. This is my fault, Lady Nan. He paused and slowly closed his eyes for a moment. Can you forgive Liani and me? In the end, his heart softened. Even with a dog, after living together for a long time, it would be a little hard to let it go. Let alone a human. But he would only give Liani this one chance. This time, he had come to plead for her. But if it happened again, he would not only stop caring about her but would also personally kick her out. Oh, Feng Ruqing glanced at Feng Lianqing. I'm not someone who holds grudges. Of course, I won't be angry with you, but as for Liani, I won't forgive her. This matter had nothing to do with Feng Lianqing, so she held no grudge against him, but... Chapter 1507. She also did not want to have any connection with Feng Lianqing. If there's nothing else, can you please leave now? Don't interrupt Nan Xian and me. Feng Ruqing supported her chin with her hand and looked at Nan Xian. Well, it was still her Nan Xian who looked beautiful, the other men. They would only affect her appetite. Nan Xian picked a slice of meat using his chopsticks and put it inside Feng Ruqing's bowl. Qinger, the food is getting cold, you should eat it now. All right. Feng Ruqing smiled and ignored Feng Lianqing. The only person left in her eyes was Nan Xian. Once again, the corner of Feng Lianqing's mouth twitched again. Lady Nan, we have experienced life and death together in the Spirit Beast Mountain. Why are you so cold to me? I thought we would become friends after that journey. Feng Ruqing turned and looked at Feng Lianqing. Liani made a mistake, I won't hold it against you, but do you think we can be friends after all this? Feng Lianqing was slightly stunned. Somehow, after hearing the girl's words, he felt a little uncomfortable. It was as if he had lost something forever. I'm sorry. Liani and I grew up together. I couldn't leave her alone. That's all I could do for her. Well, I understand you, but it doesn't mean I can accept your apology. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. So, we can't be friends, and we will never be friends. She always held grudges. Liani had accused her of something she did not do, so would she forgive Liani? And just because she did not hate Feng Lianqing did not mean that she could accept him as her friend. Because Feng Lianqing. After all, he and Liani were still friends. Of course, Feng Ruqing would not agree to become his friend. Feng Ruqing wanted to get close to Liani, and she had this purpose in mind from the beginning. However, after this incident, she was unwilling to force herself to do so. Getting close to Liani was not the only way to find out her background. There must be other methods. Me for extra chapters. Lady Nan, I know that you are unwilling to forgive Liani. Feng Lianqing's heart was filled with bitterness. But I cannot ignore her. I will report this matter to Lady, but if Lady Nan forgives Lieni, she will not be driven out. And if she's driven out, she'll definitely end up in a miserable state. Feng Ruqing stared at Feng Lianqing for a few seconds and chuckled. It has nothing to do with me. I won't go looking for her, but I won't forgive her. Nan Xian, kick him out. I don't want to see him again. All right. Nan Xian glanced at Feng Lianqing coldly. He then waved his sleeve, and a gust of wind blew, sending Feng Lianqing flying back outside and falling onto the street in a heap. Fortunately, there were not many people in Wushang City today because of the spirit beast's attack just now. He climbed up from the ground, stared at the inn and smiled bitterly. This is not what I wanted. He initially wanted to apologize but ended up pleading for Liani's mercy. Liani had framed Feng Ruqing. One with a little temper would also feel hard to forgive her. Feng Lianqing gave a final glance at them before turning around and headed to the general manor. After Feng Lianqing had left, Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian went back to their room on the second floor of the inn to rest after dinner. Chapter 1508, Liani's Hatred v. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before there was another unwelcome guest. Nan Xian's face was cold. His eyes seemed murderous as he stared at the woman standing at the door. The woman was dressed in bright yellow, appearing somewhat graceful, noble, and elegant. She walked in unceremoniously, sat in front of Feng Ruqing, and poured herself a teacup. Feng Ruqing was stunned. This tea should be from the inn. Later I will send someone to bring you some good tea, the Empress smiled faintly. Maiden Feng, this matter is indeed my fault. Yuer is innocent. Feng Ruqing's face darkened. Which eye of yours saw that I am still a maiden? Call me Lady Nan. Can't you even see that I'm already pregnant? Nan Xian pulled Feng Ruqing into his arms and glanced coldly at the Empress. His white robe fluttered under the cold moonlight. His expression expressed slight dissatisfaction. The Empress looked a little awkward. Lady Nan, Yuer wants to see you. Oh, Feng Ruqing was somewhat dazed. She did not have any bad feelings toward that little prince. He was just a spoiled child, and he was not really bad, not to the extent of that kind of evil. He was only arrogant, and that was not a big problem. As long as he was no longer so overbearing in front of her, it was enough. I'm busy. Feng Ruqing responded smilingly. Qing'er is not free. Nan Xian looked at the young girl compassionately for a while. We're busy making babies, and we don't have time to deal with unwelcome guests. The queen's face stiffened. Her gaze subconsciously fell on Feng Ruqing's abdomen. Isn't she already pregnant? It doesn't prevent us from continuing to do what we want to do. It was not really about making babies, it was about the process. Of course, since Feng Ruqing already had a baby in her belly, he did not dare to be too rough because it might harm the child in her belly. Me for extra chapters. Lady Nan, the Empress smiled bitterly. I've never seen Yuer so attached to someone before. Feng Ruqing raised her head to look at the Empress. That little fatty seemed to be afraid of her. But perhaps that boy was interested in her spirit beast. That was why he was so clingy. Actually, Yuer's health isn't very good. He was so playful and wasn't be able to cultivate, the Empress said a little helplessly. He was bullied when I wasn't around, and for that reason, I felt a bit more sorry for him. It is true that I have deliberately pampered him. Feng Ruqing did not reply. Nan Xian had already poured a cup of tea for her and placed it in front of her. She gently took a sip, her eyes drooping, listening silently. I'm afraid that he'd be bullied if he was too gentle. I want to make him fierce and powerful so that no one will bully him. After all, I can't be there for him all the time. This was the first time the Empress had talked to anyone about these matters, and she had even used a rare tone that made her look more approachable than usual. Of course, this approachability was only for the people of Wushang City. In Feng Ruking's eyes, the Empress was no different from ordinary people. But I never thought that he would be raised like this by me, nor did I consider whether I would harm him by doing so, the Empress smiled. Today, Lady Nan's words did wake me up, and I went back to think about it for a long time before I finally found out that what I have been doing was wrong. Chapter 1509. Feng Ruqing raised her eyebrows. It seemed that the Empress was not as stupid as she thought. Lady Nan, your is my life. I risked my life to give birth to him. It was my fault. I was too careless back then when I was pregnant and was poisoned, causing his veins to clog up, preventing him from cultivating, so I still feel guilty about it. If she had been careful enough back then, she would not have dragged her son down. Her carelessness had brought out such consequences. How could she not feel sorry for Yue? I lost my mind, and I was so angry when Liani told me that something had happened to Yue. He's my life. Whoever touched my life, I would fight her to the death. The Emperor and I were so emotional at that time, allowing Liani to take advantage of us, that we have almost harmed Lady Nan. The Empress was so mad back then because she was overwhelmed by anger. But only after she had calmed down that her mind could finally think clearly. Fortunately, she was not the type of person who was hard on admitting her mistakes, and since this matter was indeed their fault, she had to admit it. I can understand. Feng Ruqing took a sip of tea. If I were in danger, my parents and the others would go mad too. Besides, that little fatty is still young, so if you teach him well, there is still a chance that you can correct his behavior. The Empress' eyes showed signs of worry at the mention of this. Lady Nan, I came to find you just for this matter. Feng Ruqing looked at the Empress suspiciously. Me? That's right, Yue is spoiled by me and doesn't listen to me at all. I think he's very obedient to Lady Nan. I wonder if Lady Nan... Can you discipline him appropriately for me? Feng Ruqing was silent for a moment. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm afraid that it'll be too fierce, and it will affect the child in my belly. The Empress was somewhat confused and did not understand what Feng Ruqing was saying. She was silent for a few moments and asked, Maiden Feng, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm so gentle now, and my daughter will definitely like me as her mother. But if I'm too fierce, what if she gets scared and runs away, and I give birth to a son? One for the sake of her daughter, she would not even bother with this nonsense. The Empress was somewhat stunned. It was the first time that she had heard this kind of talk. She looked at Feng Ruqing, confused. So, you're in charge of your own child, don't come to me, Feng Ruqing yawned languidly. I'm sleepy. Nan Xian looked at the Empress coldly and gave her a warning glance. Me for extra chapters. When the Empress saw that Feng Ruqing was indeed a bit tired, she did not plan on staying longer, so she stood up helplessly. I'll leave then, but I'll come back to you later. She had already stood up after saying this and walked out of the inn. Feng Ruqing yawned again, and her body slowly rested on Nan Xian's chest. Nan Xian raised his hand and gently pulled the young girl into his arms. Let's rest first if you're tired. All right, Feng Ruqing smiled. Hearing Feng Ruqing's words, Nan Xian carried her and laid her down on bed carefully before covering her with a quilt. His movements were very gentle, afraid that he would accidentally injure the child in her womb. Moonlight poured through the window and landed on the man's face. His handsome face looked so gentle, no longer as cold as usual. Early morning. Chapter 1510. General Manor. As soon as Feng Lianqing walked out of the manor, he saw a familiar figure in front of him. He frowned and wanted to leave fast. Brother Feng. A soft call from Lieni made him stop in his tracks. He turned to the woman who was slowly walking toward him. What can I do for you? He was cold, so cold that it made Lianya's heart tremble. She and Feng Lianqing were childhood sweethearts and had grown up together, but now, the person she always called brother was treating her so cold just for a woman. Moreover, that woman was married. Brother Feng, I thought a lot about it yesterday, and I know I was wrong. Lieni endured the pain in her heart and smiled faintly. Her eyes were filled with guilt as she said, I admit that I was in love with Master Nan Xian. Feng Lianqing was startled. He had not expected Lieni to admit it, which was a bit impressive. He turned back, his gaze falling on the woman in front of him, and frowned. He already has a wife. Lieni smiled bitterly. I know. I'm not the kind of person who would cross the line just because of love. I admit that I liked him, but I've always kept it in my heart. And I admit that I held a grudge against Feng Ruqing because she embarrassed me. Feng Lianqing's eyes were cold and heavy. She didn't hurt you, but you still blamed her. So, I finally understand, Lieni smiled bitterly. I was the one who had almost harmed her, but that wasn't my intention. When I went to the palace, the emperor asked me why the little prince was taken by a leopard. I panicked, and I didn't want anything to happen to Brother Feng, so I thought of Feng Ruqing. Brother Feng, it was my fault. I know I was wrong. Lieni pulled Feng Lianqing's sleeve as her face was already soaked with tears. When Master returns, I'm ready to be punished. I beg you not to drive me out. As long as I'm allowed to stay in the general's manor, I'm willing to accept any punishment, me for extra chapters. Feng Lianqing looked at Lianya's face, his heart softened, and he sighed softly. I will plead for you, but after all, Master is the one who will make the final decision. Lieni smiled. Her smile was filled with gratitude. Thank you, Brother Feng. Master will forgive me for your sake. I know I was wrong, so don't worry, what doesn't belong to me, isn't mine. I understand that. It's good that you understand. After all, he had always treated Lieni as his sister, so he would be happy if she wanted to change for the better. And make sure you go apologize to Maiden Feng. You must wait until she forgives you. I will meet the emperor and speak for you. We have to wait for Master to return before making any decision. Lianya's body stiffened slightly. She clenched her fists tightly, and a dark glint flashed in her eyes. Only after a moment did she raise her eyes and smiled. All right, Brother Feng. Don't worry, I will ask for her forgiveness. If she doesn't forgive me, I will kneel until she forgives me. Feng Lianqing was slightly startled. He looked at Lianya's smile with some bitterness. In the end, he did not say another word and turned around to leave. Lieni stared at Feng Lianqing's back for a long time, unable to return to her senses. Chapter 1511, Lianya's Hatred 8, Maiden. A servant stood behind Lieni, somewhat dissatisfied. Master is also a member of the general's family. Why is he speaking for another woman? Enough. Lianya's face was pale, and her voice was cold. General has always been fair, and Brother Feng is only doing it for the general manor's reputation. After all, I was at fault for this matter, so I should have gone to apologize. The servant looked dissatisfied, clearly feeling aggrieved on Lianya's behalf. Everyone else will protect their own family members, but in the general manner. Master still chooses to protect an outsider. And don't you dare to say anything in front of Brother Feng. He will be angry. Lieni raised her eyes, expressionlessly. I live in the general's manor, but general and I. After all, we're not master and disciple. The only ones who can really make decisions in this manner are the general and Brother Feng. She meant nothing. Maiden, General usually treats you extremely well. Even if he didn't take you as a disciple, he still treats you as a family member. And people knew you as the young lady of General Manor. Who did not know that the general really liked little girls? He liked the Hellion families Hellion Yu and Liani. There were no other young ladies in the General Manor. Maiden Liani was the only one. But I'm not his relative after all. Liani smiled bitterly and shook her head. Besides, even if his own granddaughter made a mistake, he would not show mercy, let alone me. Forget it. So what if I accepted the loss? I'll do it as long as I can remain in the General Manor. The servant twisted her handkerchief tighter. She wanted to convince Liani but did not know how to begin. Moreover, that woman is so beautiful. Otherwise, Brother Feng wouldn't have spoken up for her. And her husband wouldn't have just stood by, watching her hook up with everyone and still did not abandon her, Liani said faintly as she started to leave. The servant was unaware with a smile on Liani's face as she walked past her. The servant was somewhat stunned, and she did not feel sympathy for Liani. No wonder Master Lianqing is so helpful to that girl, she's really too foxy, and Master Lianqing is smitten with her. Me for extra chapters. The moment the servant was about to turn around, a voice suddenly came from behind her, causing her to stop abruptly. Hey, you! Stop! The maid trembled in fear as she turned back and saw Hellion Yu was heading in her direction. The young girl looked cute and lovely, only the arrogant frown between her eyebrows spoiled this delicate appearance. Xiao Xiao followed closely behind Hellion Yu. Young Lady Hellion, the servant hurriedly bowed respectfully. Hellion Yu raised her eyebrows. Have you seen Brother Lianqing? The servant was stunned with Hellion Yu's words, and a flash of light flashed through her eyes. In Wushang City, the only person the general condoned was Hellion Yu. No matter how much trouble Hellion Yu had caused, the general had never driven her out. In comparison, Liani, who had followed the general since childhood, had never received such treatment. Suddenly, the servant gritted her teeth as she thought of Liania's heartbroken face just now. Young Lady Hellion, Master has just left. Chapter 1512 Brother Lianqing has left. Hellion Yu's eyes flashed with confusion. Where did he go? The servant bit her lip, hesitating. She was timid as if there were something she did not dare to say. Suddenly, Hellion Yu's heart thudded. Tell me quickly, where did my brother Lianqing go? Did he go find demonic sluts out there? The servant panicked. No. No matter how others try to tempt Master, he will never fall for them. Initially, Hellion Yu should have been proud of herself after hearing these words. But somehow, when she saw the servant panicking, her heart sank a little. Someone has seduced Brother Lianqing, right? Who's that bitch? Is that bitch from the Zhuge family, or that deluded old woman from the Nangong family? The servant quickly kowtowed. Young Lady Hellion, please spare me. I don't dare to say it. Hellion Yu looked down at the servant kowtowing in front of her with anger on her delicate small face. Tell me who has seduced my brother Lianqing. I'll kill her. The servant looked up shakily. A married woman. A married woman. Is she the same old bitch like the one from the Nangong family? Hellion Yu gritted her teeth viciously. She was mourning alone these days and did not come to see Feng Lianqing when he came back. Who knew when she was not around, another old woman had tried to hook up with her brother Lianqing. Where's that shameless bitch? You're already married, and you're still hitting on brother Lianqing. Hellion Yu snorted. And what about my brother Lianqing, has he accepted that woman? The servant was a little afraid to look into Hellion Yu's eyes and lowered her head again. Master Lianqing fought with Maiden Liani because of that woman, me for extra chapters. Helian Yu's face was slightly pale. Brother Lianqing and Liani fought. Well, she did not like Liani, and there had been a time when someone from the general manor wanted to arrange a marriage between brother Lianqing and Liani. However, they were childhood sweethearts. Every time brother Lianqing fought with Liani, she would stand on the side, clapping her hands happily. But now brother Lianqing was arguing with her over another woman. Helian Yu had mixed feelings about it. He and Liani are quarreling over that woman. Yes, young lady Helian. The servant smirked. She always kept her head down so that no one could see her expression. Maiden Liani is a woman of integrity. She can't bear to see such a married woman still hitting on other men. Moreover, Maiden Liani clearly knows that only young lady Helian deserves to be with Master Lianqing. How could she let other women seduce him? Seriously. Helian Yu felt a little skeptical. Doesn't that little bitch Liani always feel dissatisfied with me because grandfather Tianya keeps backing me up? How can she have accepted me to become brother Lianqing's wife? Unbelievable. Yes, it's true. The servant finally dared to look into Helian Yu's eyes and said, Young lady Helian, what I've said is true. That woman is so shameless. She already has a husband, but she is still seducing other men, and now even Master Lianqing has been bewitched by her. What if she really used her charms to trick Master Lianqing, and Master does not even realize that? Helian Yu's face changed dramatically. Whenever she thought of Feng Lianqing marrying another woman, she felt like 1,000 thorns piercing at and tearing her heart. It was so uncomfortable. Chapter 15:13, Lianya's hatred x No way. There was no way she could watch brother Lianqing marry someone else, especially a married woman. Young lady Helian, think about it. Master has even fought with Maiden Liani over that woman. How long can Master be rational before he loses his mind because of that woman? The servant clenched her fists tightly. What Maiden Liani said must be true. That woman has bewitched Master, and that's why Master is so helpful to her. He had even asked Maiden Liani to apologize to her. A person of unknown background. What rights does she have to make Maiden Liani apologize to her? Maiden Liani is from the general manor. No one can treat her like that. Helian Yu gritted her teeth. Where's that bitch? I'm going to find her now. Wu Shangin. The servant sneered. Xiao Xiao, let's go. I'm going to meet that vixen who wants to seduce brother Lianqing now. Helian Yu snorted. She turned around and walked out of the courtyard. She did not even notice that the moment she turned away, not far away, a figure slowly appeared from behind the big rock. Liani looked at the departing Helian Yu calmly and sneered. Helian Yu has grown up but is still as stupid as before. Wouldn't it be too wasteful if we don't take advantage of such a person? After she saw that Helian Yu had disappeared, she came out from her hiding spot behind the rock. Maiden Liani. The servant turned her head and saw Liani walking over. She panicked and hurriedly kowtowed. What are you doing? Liani asked, confused. The servant bit her lips. I've just told Helian Yu about the woman who has seduced Master me for extra chapters. Liani was startled. All people in Wushan City are already aware of Helian Yu's behavior. If you tell her about that, in case she causes trouble, Brother Feng will definitely be furious. By then, wouldn't it even cause Helian Yu to lose her place in his heart? Hearing these words, the servant was somewhat disdainful. Maiden, Helian Yu is no match for Master. Even without that married woman, Master still won't accept her. But have you ever thought that if Brother Feng knew about this, he would definitely blame us? Liani looked at the servant disappointedly. If it weren't for us, Helian Yu wouldn't have gone causing trouble for that woman. The servant gritted her teeth. Maiden Liani, don't worry. Maiden Lieni has saved my life back then. If Master asked about this, he'll take the blame, and he'll make sure this matter has nothing to do with Maiden Lieni. Moreover, Maiden Lieni didn't know about this matter. It was my own decision. You, Lieni pointed at the servant and sighed heavily. You must remember not to do that again in the future. If Brother Feng is angry, I will plead for you. The servant did not say any more. Lieni looked at the servant for a moment before she turned around and left. The servant stared at Lieni gratefully. Maiden Lieni is so kind. I've done such things, but Maiden Lieni is still willing to plead for me. I don't understand why Master would treat Maiden Lieni like this for an outsider. Wu Shangin. The noisy inn suddenly became quiet after a figure hurriedly rushed in. Everyone was stunned as their eyes were fixed on the furious woman. They had even subconsciously moved to the side, afraid that standing in the way would cause harm to themselves. Chapter 1514, Liania's Hatred 11. What is the Hellion family's member doing here? I'm not sure. I guess she is searching for somebody. Hellion Youth seems to have been quiet for a few days, but now she has started to cause trouble again. It's better if we just hide here. The general pampers her, so she fears nothing. The guest room was on the second floor. Hellion Yu was so furious that she quickly rushed upstairs to find that woman. But suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. She seemed to have fallen into deep thought. She left so fast that she forgot to ask the woman's name. After thinking about it, she simply grabbed a waiter and asked, "Let me ask you, has a woman been staying at the inn recently?" The waiter was stunned, and when he saw who was holding him back, his face was pale and scared. I'm not sure, Hellion Yu glared at the waiter. Fortunately, Xiao Xiao was quicker to react and quickly asked him, "Then, tell me if Master Lianqing has come to your inn to look for someone." Feng Lianqing was the master of the general manor and the god of war of Wushang City. Therefore, lots of people knew him. Even though Feng Ruqing was sitting in a corner, Feng Lianqing would attract countless people's attention as soon as he appeared. "Yes, he came here just now." The waiter was silent for a moment and said honestly, "But the woman he came to see is not a woman, it's a couple, and that woman is very young." Hellion Yu's face stiffened slightly. The servant from the general manor was telling the truth. Brother Lianqing really does have a girl he liked. "Oh, so you are the young lady from the Hellion family." The sound of the snort laugh came from the side, and when Hellion Yu turned around, she saw a man dressed in cotton robes, slowly walking toward her. The man had a smile on his lips, and he seemed somewhat interested in Hellion Yu who's standing in front of him. "Are you here to cause trouble to another girl again?" The man laughed. "Hellion Yu, I think you should stop chasing after Feng Lianqing. How about you become my concubine?" Hellion Yu snorted, "What's it to do with you if I'm pursuing Brother Lianqing? I'm not interested in being someone's concubine, me for extra chapters." "Hellion Yu, you're so foolish and only have a beautiful face. Do you think you're qualified to become my wife?" The man sneered. "Only a smart and well-mannered woman deserves to be my wife, not something that a reckless little girl like you can do." Hellion Yu did not say anything, she gazed fiercely at the young man. The young man lifted Hellion Yu's chin with the fan in his hand. "Isn't it because you have Tianya who always backs you up that you dare to be so arrogant? But this Wushang city is my Qi family's territory after all, and Tianya is just our Qi family's watchdog. Hellion Yu, if you know what you're doing, bang." Hellion Yu raised her foot and stepped on the young man's foot. You can only dream. She would rather pursue Brother Lianqing for the rest of her life than to be his concubine. She loved Feng Lianqing and nothing else. She did not care about his status either. Whether he was Grandfather Tian Ya's disciple or just an ordinary commoner. She just liked him as he was. Shit. The young man was so furious that he fiercely raised his foot and kicked Helian Yu's chest. Young lady. Xiao Xiao screamed, worriedly. Everyone on the ground floor looked up and saw the young man had kicked Helian Yu, sending her flying down. Chapter 15:15, Lianya's Hatred 12. At this moment, the inn's main hall fell so quiet one could hear a pin drop. As soon as Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian walked in from outside the hall, she sensed that something was wrong. She followed the direction of others' gaze and immediately saw a familiar figure falling from the second floor and almost landing on top of her. Feng Ruqing instinctively pulled the young girl into her arms. Nan Xian was stunned. His expression changed slightly. It seems like Qing'er needs to break these habits and stop pitying other women. Having Guiyi was enough, she could not have another woman by her side. She could not even control herself. What if these women clung to her again, just like Guiyi? The entire inn was in a deafening silence. The young girl dressed in red was stunningly beautiful. Her beauty was breathtaking, mesmerizing. Because of her beauty, people did not even notice her pregnant belly. She lifted Helian Yu with one of her hands, deliberately keeping her at a distance. The scene was quite mesmerizing. The crowd did not know why, but they actually felt that it was wonderful to see these two women together, and it strangely touched their hearts. Helian Yu slowly opened her eyes and saw a beautiful stunning face looking at her. You, before she could say a word, the girl had already let go of her hand. She then fell onto the floor in a heap. Sorry, Feng Ruqing crouched down, apologizing. No, it's all right. Helian Yu looked at her in a daze. Feng Ruqing had saved her again. It was just a spontaneous reaction, and I've always been like that, Feng Ruqing said, feeling guilty. So I have accidentally caught you. But fortunately, I've dropped you again after regaining my senses. Helian Yu was speechless. Oh, were you practicing flying just now, me for extra chapters? Practicing flying. What nonsense. Helian Yu's face darkened. Someone had clearly kicked her down. Qing'er, Nan Xian pulled Feng Ruqing into his arms. He glanced at Helian Yu coldly before turned back to Feng Ruqing and said, You must change this habit. Why? Feng Ruqing looked at Nan Xian, somewhat confused. Because, Nan Xian smiled faintly and said seriously. You are better than many men. These girls might secretly fall in love with you, and that will affect their marriage prospects. I see, Feng Ruqing blinked and nodded. All right, next time, if anyone flies over me, I'll just kick her away. Helian Yu patted her chest. She felt like a sword had penetrated her heart, and it was so cold. This guy is so mean. Is he a human? He's so sick. Young lady, Xiao Xiao cried as she rushed down. Young lady, are you all right? Does it hurt? I'm fine. Helian Yu patted down her dress and stood up from the floor. She then looked at the man upstairs coldly. Fourth prince, even though you are a prince, you are no match for Brother Lianqing. I'd rather become a servant girl for Brother Lianqing than stay by your side as your concubine. The fourth prince ignored Helian Yu as his eyes were fixed upon Feng Ruqing. There were so many beautiful girls in Wushang City, but he had never seen a girl who was as beautiful as her. Chapter 15:16, Lianya's Hatred 13. However, fourth prince was so disappointed as he saw Feng Ruqing's pregnant belly. What a pity. Such a beautiful girl has been ruined by a man. He liked beauties, but he did not like married women. This girl had the scent of another man on her body and was pregnant with his child. She was not his taste. He liked a girl who was pure and had not been tainted by any man yet. Helianyu, fourth prince, looked at Helianyu again and sneered. I want to make you a concubine because I adored you. There is nothing that I can't get in this world. But now I'm not interested in you anymore. This woman had rejected him over and over again and embarrassed him in public. People would call him crazy if he still wanted her as a concubine. There were so many women in this world who wanted to sleep with him, and they were much more beautiful than Helianyu. What else did Helianyu have other than her look? Helianyu's small face turned red as she glared at fourth prince angrily. When grandfather Tianya returns, I'll tell him about this. Tianya. These two words inexplicably made Feng Rooking's heart tremble. She then subconsciously held Helianyu's hand. Who did you just say? Tianya. Was he the same Tianya she was looking for? Helianyu was stunned and looked at Feng Rooking suspiciously. Xiao Qing, what? What happened to you? Nothing. That Tianya you were talking about, oh, he's my brother Lianking's master. Wait. Lianqing. Feng Lianqing. Tianya is Feng Lianking's master. Feng Rooking slowly closed her eyes, her heart trembling. If Tianya's family name is also Feng, then is he really Feng Wuhui? Xiao Qing, Nan Xian held Feng Rooking's hand. The warmth of the man's palm had gradually calmed her heart. She could not ask too much about Tianya yet. Me for extra chapters. She was not sure if Tianya was really Feng Wuhui, and even if it was confirmed, how could he believe that she was Feng Tianhua's daughter after Tianya had been away for so many years? After all, when Tianya left back then, her father had not been married, and she had not been born yet. Fine. Feng Rooking opened her eyes. It seemed that she had come to the right place, Wushang City. You go on and leave me alone. Oh, Helianyu was a bit dumbfounded. By the time she turned back to continue arguing with fourth prince, he had already walked down the stairs. He stopped in front of Helianyu and sneered. Go and tell Tianya. Why should I be afraid of him? As soon as he finished speaking, he pushed Helianyu down hard and walked toward the door. Helianyu's small face was filled with anger. Are all people in the palace so arrogant? Xiao Xiao felt so awkward. Young lady, you're pretty much the same as them. Young lady, have you forgotten why we're here? Xiao Xiao whispered, reminding her. Oh, that's right. Helianyu suddenly went to the waiter and picked up his lapel fiercely. Tell me quickly, where is the woman who seduced my brother Lianqing? The waiter was startled and looked at Feng Rooking. Helianyu snorted, why are you looking at Xiao Qing? Where the hell is that old woman? A woman who already has a husband but is still seducing other men. I won't let her near my brother Lianqing.